So we're diving into experiential therapy today, or as everyone calls it, ET. It seems like you've been really interested in how our emotions can help us overcome tough stuff, especially addiction. And ET is a really fascinating angle on that.
Yeah, what's interesting about ET is that it kind of steps outside of just talking about problems like you might in traditional therapy.
Because like instead of just describing the problem, you're actually
Yeah.
doing something, right? Like getting those emotions out in a real, tangible way.
Exactly. It uses things like, art, movement, even wilderness experiences as tools for healing and growth. So, for someone battling addiction, it might be a way to really tap into those deeper emotional currents that could be driving their behaviors.
That's interesting. Instead of numbing those feelings with substances, you're actually creating a safe space to explore and process them. So how would you actually define experiential therapy? What's the quick and dirty?
Well, at its core, I would say ET uses what we call expressive activities, things like that, to help people connect with and manage those emotions. It's not about throwing out talk therapy completely.
More like adding another tool to the toolbox, right?
Exactly. Think of it like trying to describe a really vivid dream to someone. Words can only capture so much. But imagine if you could somehow experience that dream through art, through movement. It takes on a whole new dimension, right? That's kind of what ET aims to do, but with our emotions.
Okay, now that is interesting. But how does it actually work? What's the secret sauce?
Well, the secret is really the brain's incredible ability to change and adapt through experience, through what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity.
So it's not just expressing emotions, it's like rewiring how our brains work.
Exactly. When we do these ET activities, we're creating new pathways in the brain, new ways of dealing with and responding to those emotions.
So it's like finding a detour around a roadblock in your brain. If one path is blocked, you find a new route to navigate those feelings.
Perfect analogy. And the really cool part is that those new paths can become stronger over time, which makes it easier to deal with tough emotions in a healthy way, rather than, say, reaching for a drink or a drug.
Right? It's not just quitting the addiction, it's rewiring your brain so you have healthier ways to cope with the stress, the trauma, all the underlying stuff.
Absolutely. And that's where the therapist plays a crucial role.
They're not just there to like hand out the paintbrushes or lead a drum circle.
No, no, they're still very much a guide. They help you process what comes up during those activities, see the connections, and learn those healthier coping mechanisms, more like a co-explorer, helping you navigate those uncharted territories of your emotional world.
I like that. They provide that safe space while the activity itself is the catalyst for change.
Exactly. And just like we have many parts to ourselves, there are many different ET techniques out there, each with its own approach and benefits.
Which makes this whole thing even more exciting. So let's jump into some of those. Where should we begin? So we're talking about a whole bunch of different techniques here. Where does art therapy kind of fit into all this?
Well, art therapy is a good place to start. I think it's one of the better known ones for sure. And it can be really powerful, especially for folks who have trouble, putting their feelings into words.
It's like giving your emotions a different language, right?
Mhm.
Instead of words, you've got colors and shapes and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something about the act of making art itself that's really therapeutic, like just the process of working with those materials. It can be really grounding, almost meditative, helps you tap into a different headspace.
It's funny how engaging with art like that can bring a sense of calm, almost like a release valve for all those pent-up emotions. Is there like actual research showing how effective that can be, especially for someone who's, dealing with addiction?
Oh, yeah. There's a growing body of research suggesting that art therapy can be really helpful for people in addiction recovery. For example, there was this study, I think it was in the Journal of the American Art Therapy Association, that found that art therapy helped people reduce cravings and even improve their coping skills.
So it's not just like a feel-good activity. There's actual science backing it up. Now, art therapy focuses a lot on visual and tactile expression. What about movement and dance? How does that tap into our emotions?
Well, with movement and dance therapy, it's about recognizing that our emotions aren't just like in our heads, they're in our bodies too.
Right.
You know how when you're stressed, your shoulders get tense, your jaw clenches up?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. Movement lets us release that tension, just kind of shake off the stress and find that flow again.
It's like that feeling after a good workout, right? A total reset. But instead of hitting the gym, you're hitting the dance floor. I bet that's incredibly freeing, especially for someone carrying the weight of addiction.
You got it. Dance therapy can be amazing for reconnecting with your body, building that self-awareness, and of course, exploring a whole range of emotions, all within a safe space.
It's like retraining your body to respond to emotions in a healthier way, not by using, but by moving and expressing. So we've talked about art, we've talked about movement. What about bringing in some furry friends? Animal-assisted therapy has always been really interesting to me. I feel like just the presence of a comforting animal can be so therapeutic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, animals, they just have this amazing ability to be present, right? To just exist in the moment. And their presence can be really grounding, especially for someone who's struggling. Plus, you've got that unconditional love and acceptance that's so healing.
That makes a lot of sense, especially for someone who might be dealing with shame or guilt from addiction.
Mm, yeah.
To have that kind of non-judgmental support, a companion who doesn't care about your past mistakes, that could be incredibly powerful.
And you don't even have to be a huge animal person necessarily. The simple act of caring for another living being, whether it's brushing a horse or walking a dog, even just talking to a cat, can really help shift your focus outward. It builds empathy and connection.
You're taking a break from your own head, focusing on something else, and finding a sense of purpose in the process. That's pretty incredible. So we've got art, movement, the animal kingdom. What else is there in the world of ET?
Let's switch gears a bit and talk about role playing and drama therapy. Now, I know what you might be thinking. We're not talking about putting on a Broadway show here.
Although that would be fun. I'm guessing there's a little more therapeutic purpose here.
You got it. Basically, role-playing and drama in this context, it gives you a safe space to practice how to react in tough situations, like a dress rehearsal for real life, you could say.
So say you're dealing with social anxiety or you're worried about a potential relapse trigger. You could use role-playing to, like, practice how you'd handle that situation, but in a safe environment.
Exactly. You can test out different behaviors, play around with new coping mechanisms, all without those real-world consequences.
It's like getting to rewrite the script in your head to practice a different outcome. I can see how that can be so empowering, especially in recovery.
It really is. And that's kind of the core of experiential therapy, right? You're not just talking about change, you're actively practicing it. And that rewires those neural pathways we talked about.
It's like creating muscle memory, but for your emotions. So art, dance, animals, a little drama. Let's move into the great outdoors now. What about this wilderness therapy?
Oh, wilderness therapy is fascinating. Basically, it uses nature as a therapeutic tool. The idea is that immersing yourself in nature, taking on physical challenges, it can unlock a lot of resilience and self-discovery.
Okay, so paint me a picture here. What does a wilderness therapy session actually look like?
Picture this. You're hiking through the woods, climbing a rock face, even paddling down a river. You're surrounded by nature, right? But you're also facing some real, tangible challenges.
So it's not exactly a relaxing stroll in the park, right? You're really pushing your boundaries, getting out of that comfort zone. But how does that tie back to addiction?
It's all about using those challenges as metaphors. Think about it. To get past an obstacle in nature, you have to dig deep, find that inner strength, just like you have to do in recovery.
So like conquering a mountain becomes a metaphor for conquering your addiction. That's powerful.
And the best part,
Yeah.
it often works on a subconscious level. You're not just talking about the challenges, you're working through them with your mind and your body.
You're basically teaching your brain to associate challenge with, like, victory, not with giving in or needing to escape.
Yeah.
And I imagine being surrounded by nature's beauty probably doesn't hurt either.
Yeah.
It's like nature itself is part of the healing process.
Exactly. There's just something so grounding and restorative about being in nature. You get a new perspective. You connect to something bigger than yourself.
It's like hitting the reset button on your whole system,
Yeah.
trading in the daily grind for a little peace and quiet. I get it. So we've talked about the body with movement and being in nature. Now, what about the mind? What's the deal with guided imagery?
So guided imagery, it's all about harnessing the power of your mind to create positive change.
So kind of like visualization, right?
Yeah.
Picturing what you want in your mind. But how does that work in therapy?
Well, in a session, a therapist might guide you through a relaxation technique first, to relax your mind. Then they lead you through a specific visualization, like maybe imagining yourself successfully handling a trigger or finding a place of peace and calm inside yourself.
So you're basically practicing how you want to react in those tough situations.
Right. And the more you practice these visualizations, the stronger those neural pathways become. You're more likely to respond that way for real.
Like planting a garden, but in your mind. Nurturing the good stuff until it just becomes natural.
I like that.
So we've got art, movement, animals, nature, and even the power of our own minds. But we can't forget about music. Tell me about music therapy.
Music therapy is a really cool field. It uses music to help people with, well, a lot of things. Physical stuff, emotional, cognitive, even social needs.
I totally get how music can instantly boost your mood, but how does that become, like, therapy?
Well, in music therapy, a trained therapist will actually use music to help you reach specific goals.
So it's not just listening to calming music.
It can be. But you might also sing, write songs, play instruments, even compose music.
Wow, that's wild. So someone with addiction could use music to process their emotions, learn to cope, and even, like, build connections with others.
Absolutely. Music has this unique ability to tap right into our emotions, bypass all the defenses and just create a sense of connection.
Like it's a direct line to how we feel.
You could say that. And you don't have to be a musician to benefit either. It's about the experience, the way it makes you feel.
That's really incredible. Okay, so we've covered a lot here, from art to movement, animals, nature, even guided imagery and music. That's a lot of different approaches. With all these options, how do you know which one's right for you, especially when it comes to addiction recovery?
That's the million-dollar question. And the thing is, ET isn't one size fits all. What works for one person might not work for someone else.
So how do you figure out the right fit? Where do you even start? It does seem like finding the right ET approach, especially for addiction recovery, is a pretty personal thing.
It really is. It's like any therapy. You have to find what works for you, your needs, what you're comfortable with, the whole picture.
You got to feel right therapeutically. And I guess a good therapist can help you figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. They can help you explore those different ET techniques, see what you're comfortable with, and then come up with a plan that feels safe and actually helps you feel more in control. Like someone who loves nature, loves a challenge, they might do great with wilderness therapy. But someone who's more, I don't know, introspective, likes to create things, maybe art or music therapy is the way to go.
It's about finding the right key to unlock your own path. But are there times when ET might not be the best fit, even for addiction?
That's a really important thing to consider because as great as it can be, it's not like a cure-all. It doesn't work for everyone. Like if someone's dealing with really serious mental health stuff, something that needs immediate attention, they might need a different approach.
So ET wouldn't replace traditional therapy in those cases.
Right. It often works best alongside other treatments, kind of like a companion to address the emotional and behavioral sides of things.
Like adding an extra layer of support.
Sure.
Another tool in the toolbox, like you were saying.
Exactly. You wouldn't use a hammer for every job. Right. Same goes for ET. Not every person, not every situation.
Makes sense. It's about the right combination of things to support someone on their own journey.
And having a good therapist is so key there. They can help you navigate everything, what might help, what might not, and put together a plan that actually makes sense for you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on experiential therapy, what's the big takeaway you hope our listeners are left with?
I'd say if you're looking for a way to understand yourself better, to really work through those emotions, even overcome things like addiction, ET can be a really powerful, transformative path.
It's about going beyond just talking about our problems. It's about experiencing them, working through them in a way that's, well, real.
And remember, it's not one size fits all. That's the beauty of it. It can meet you where you are, give you tools and experiences that actually resonate with you.
So to everyone listening, I'll leave you with this. What part of this really stood out to you? What resonated? Maybe it's time to explore that a little more. See what experiential therapy is all about and what it could unlock for you. Until next time, keep diving deep.